Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Webcast Wednesday. My name is Avni Gala, and I'm the marketing manager here at FineTech. Today, Webcast Wednesday invites you to a special presentation in which Rick Leclerc from Bradford Networks will help us learn about the integrations of Bradford with Fortinet solutions. Let's look at today's agenda. So for those who are new here, I'm going to do a little introduction on FineTech. Then we're going to do a today's presentation by Rick, followed by Q&A. And finally, we are going to do our 2 drawings for $25 Amazon gift card. So for those who are not familiar with FineTech, we are a value-added distributor that specializes specifically in network security and IT security solutions. We work with companies like Fortinet, Awareness Technologies, Bradford Networks, IBM, Exablox, AlgoSec, and Backmount IT. So these are the companies that we distribute products of. In fact, we have been the 2014 and 2015 Distributor of the Year for Fortinet, and we have been winning this title for quite a few years now. The services that we provide include inventory. So we are one of the value-added distributors that would hold inventory for customers well-built. We provide financing, so we give you flexible payment methods. We do sales support from initial quote to close. Any marketing support like events, webinars, campaigns, and any technical services from demo to deployment. So if you need an extra hand, we provide hand to the demand. That's about us. And before I hand it over to our presenter, let me brief you on Rick's bio and what today's presentation will cover. So in his role as Chief Solutions Architect at Bradford Networks, Rick works with strategic accounts all over the world and also works directly with business development and technology partners to deliver joint customer solutions that bridge the gap between the SOC and NOC through security automation and orchestration initiatives. Prior to Bradford Networks, Rick was Director of the Customer Engineering Group at Aprisma Management Technologies and Cabletron Systems for over 10 years. And in today's presentation, Rick will talk about how Fortinet and Bradford Networks have partnered to automate the complex threat triage and response process. We will also show how Network Sentry correlates security alerts from Fortinet security solutions to contain advantage cyber threats on compromised endpoints in seconds. And we will learn about Bradford's single sign-on integration through Radius accounting, syslog integration with FortiGate, and integrations with FortiSIEM and FortiAuthenticator solutions. So now I'm going to hand it over to Rick to further explore the subject.
Hey, thanks, Ivani.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to try to share my screen. Desktop. Hopefully this works.
Yep, works.
All right. Play from start. All right, perfect. So like Ivani said, this is Rick Leclerc, a solutions architect, pre-sales engineer for Bradford Networks. We also have Sean Craig, who's our channel manager on the Bradford side as well. Typically, my presentations are technical, and I know the overview that Ivani gave was pretty technical, talking about syslog and SNMP. And what I hope you come away from this presentation with is that Bradford's integrations with Fortinet will help you sell more Fortinet. And if it helps you sell Bradford at the same time, then that's even better. So hopefully that's the theme. I'm going to try to present it in that manner and maybe leave some of the bits and bytes and details of those integrations out and focus on what the value is to the customer that you're trying to sell to. I know Sean mentioned in the chat, if anybody has any questions, to please type those in and we'll address those as we go. So I'm going to do a little introduction about Bradford and Network Sentry, a quick overview, and then talk about the specific integrations that we have and we've had for many years with the Fortinet product line. Some of these are new. The FortiSIEM is definitely new, a new integration. All of them provide a lot of value to the customer, and individually, the individual product on its own obviously has value, but tying the two together, hopefully you'll see what that value is. So wireless integration, definitely. There's a single sign-on. The FortiGate product line and the FortiSIEM product line, they're related because they do tie the security operations center to the network operations center and take some things that have been typically manual in the past and allow you to automate those. So we'll go into some details there. And then the last piece is the FortiSwitch. So we're providing some management there. It did talk about FortiAuthenticator. That is something that we're looking at. Right now, there is no integration with the FortiAuthenticator, so sorry if that was a little bit misleading. So,
hey, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Real quick, can you go to full screen mode? We're seeing the not presentation mode. I think if you go up to the top there, use slideshow, that might be it.
Oh, what were you seeing? The two slides? Okay.
Yeah, and all the upcoming slides. So.
All right. Thank you for that. Is that better?
Yep.
Much better, thanks.
All right. So Bradford's been in business for 16 years. We started in the network access control space, and our architecture has been consistent from the beginning. So the foundation of what we do is based on an inventory, network and an endpoint inventory. So all the traditional pre-connect network access control functions, obviously we've expanded the functionality over the years and added integrations with products like the Fortinet product line. So we'll talk about this live inventory of network connections, network and user context. So really what Bradford's providing with the Network Sentry product is a foundation for the security automation with the FortiGate and FortiSIEM product line. So over 1,000 customers installed all over the world. There's no vertical that's exempt from this. The education space was kind of where BYOD got its initial launch. So the education market has been buying this product for, again, 16 plus years, but we're in all verticals, and there's definitely a play there. So Gartner and SC Magazine have recognized Bradford. We offer a virtual appliance through ESX or Hyper-V. We also have physical appliances. We can sit anywhere on the network. So the architecture lends itself to a cloud-based offering if that's what your customers are interested in. And there's a capital offering, permanent licenses, and there's also a subscription-based model. If you wanted more details, then we can have a follow-up on that. 100% channel-based. So we've worked with FineTech for a number of years. We help partners sell the product, but everything is through the channel. Ooh. That's interesting. Sorry about the formatting here. Didn't realize in this mode. So there's three primary areas that we focus on with the Network Sentry product. Visibility and our ability to identify every endpoint on the network. So MAC address, IP address, connection location. The theme there is don't try to control things on your network until you know what is on your network. So all the horror stories that you've heard in the past about NAC and companies that have come into the NAC space and gone away, probably didn't follow that theme and tried to control environments for customers before they knew what they were controlling. So once that visibility is in place, then the next step is to provide that level of control. Control meaning assigning specific network access to a device based on who the user is, what type of device it is, where it's connecting, what time it's connecting, and enforcing any host integrity or endpoint compliance policies, providing an onboarding process through a captive portal for BYOD for guest, contractor, and visitor access. So we provide that level of control across any wired, any wireless environment. So we provide that network-based portal functionality so the end users see a consistent experience regardless of how they connect to the network. The response piece, this is where the integrations with the FortiGate and FortiSIEM come into play. So based on that visibility and that foundation and that user and device awareness, if there's something identified on the Fortinet side as far as an automated threat or some indicator of compromise about a device on the network, by integrating these two products, the customer has an automated mechanism to take those bad hosts off the network without any intervention from the security or the network operations teams. Obviously, that's a powerful solution, and everything is deployed in a phased approach. So we don't turn on that integration and start taking endpoints off the network immediately. There is a notification phase in between. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, visibility as the foundation, control being more of the traditional pre-connect NAC functionality, and the response piece is really the security automation, security orchestration, whose value comes in when the two solutions are integrated. How we build that foundation. So as I said, our boxes can sit anywhere on the network as long as they have the ability to communicate with the infrastructure. Then we use the infrastructure to build that network and endpoint inventory. So every MAC address, every IP address, every user that's connected to the network, we will identify, we will know about them, and we will have the ability to control them because we use the network infrastructure as our policy enforcement points. So we'll assign VLANs, we'll modify ACLs, we control switch ports. So the network is a huge part of the overall solution, the infrastructure in that network, whether it's a layer 2 switch, a wireless controller, wireless access point, or the firewall, or the SIEM, as you'll see. So we've, by design, do not look at network traffic. We're not inline, and we don't rely on span ports or taps. So we need solutions like the FortiGate and like the FortiSIEM to identify post-connect anomalies, devices that are misbehaving or users that are misbehaving. So we've designed our product for scalability and for visibility and for control, and then we integrate with the best-of-breed products to take those post-connect events and allow customers to define automated actions when those events occur. So I mentioned this live inventory of network connections, and regardless of whether it's physical or virtual or in the cloud, across multiple locations, as long as we can talk to the VPN concentrator, the switch, or the wireless, then we'll build that inventory with the user, the device, what type of device it is. Is it mobile? Is it wired? Is it wireless? Where is it connected? We know what switch it's on. We know what building it's in. We know what location it's in. And we know what applications are installed. And we know when and where or when that device is connecting and when it's disconnecting. So again, that's the foundation for everything. Knowing what's on the network before you try to control it. So traditional pre-connect risk assessments, again, do I trust the device? Is it still a printer? Is somebody spoofing a MAC address? Is the device up to date on its antivirus and OS patches, definition levels? So all the trust establishment is done. Devices are allowed on the network. And then if there's an indicator of compromise or indicator of risk, then that ties into the post-connect functionality that we'll talk about in more detail. So typical pre-connect, post-connect NAC functionality. The specific integrations. So I want to start on the wireless side. Two Fortinet wireless products. The one that we've worked with for many years is the Maru-based wireless controller. What we provide with the Maru product, and some of this is overlap as you see the first bullet. So Bradford offers a network-based captive portal. We don't leverage the internal captive portal on the Maru controller. We can, but to keep a consistent end user experience across the wired and wireless network, I think 99% of the customers that have Bradford in a Maru environment leverage the Bradford captive portal. So it's fully customizable by location. It's used for BYOD, used for guests and visitors, sponsored guest access. And again, there's some overlap there, obviously, with the Maru product line. We have a full suite of endpoint compliance options. We have agents that run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. We have agentless capabilities to do the same thing. So again, all the host integrity endpoint compliance functionalities built into Network Sentry. With the Network Sentry product as a policy engine, we can provide role-based access. So minimizing the amount of SSIDs that are needed, the policy server or the policy engine can assign VLANs to different hosts based on the same SSID. So again, automated role-based access based on who, what, where, and when. If a device is blocked based on a wireless network interface card and that host moves, the policy is going to stay with that host, even if it goes onto the wired network. So again, the advantage of having Bradford in a Maru environment is that the Bradford policy engine can apply those exact same policies to any wired switch. So tying the adapters together to a single host, assigning that host a role, or assigning that host maybe a quarantine or a dead end configuration, that policy is going to follow that host wherever it goes. What does this give you as the reseller trying to sell the Maru product? Is definitely a level playing field, and in a lot of cases some advantages when competing against some of these vendors as well. Obviously Aruba has some capabilities and Cisco has capabilities in the access control space with their own policy engines and profiling, but tying all of that functionality across both the wired and the wireless. So lots of existing Maru customers. Hopefully that makes sense on the wireless controller side. We'll come back to the ability to control wireless clients when we talk about the post-connect integrations with the FortiGate and the FortiSIEM. So what does it look like in Network Sentry? So this is just a simple example. There's the Maru controller. In this case, it's a 500D. Talking to the controller, we identify the interfaces or VLANs that exist on the controller. Those VLANs are used to provide the control. So in this example, we've got 3 VLANs, 27, 28, and 29. We have the VLAN names, and then we're going to use those VLANs for the different policies. Policies being a registration policy, so an unknown device goes into VLAN 29. A disabled device for example, a device that's identified as misbehaving, that device is going to go into VLAN 27 as defined in this screen. And then the production network for known and well-behaved devices, we're going to use VLAN 28. And you define the radius secret for all the radius communication between the controller and Network Sentry. So basically, Network Sentry is the radius server and act as the policy engine to make the decision for each wireless device that connects, what VLAN does it belong in. In this example, we've got one SSID. So anything that attempts to connect to that SSID is going to end up in one of these 3 VLANs based on the state of that device. And it could move from one VLAN to another based on the information that we obtain about that device, again, tying into the integrations. So full policy engine, able to control any device that's trying to connect to Maru. Single sign-on for BYOD and guest. So there are going to be environments where there are non-Fortinet solutions at layer 2 switching or wireless connectivity. Because Bradford has the full vendor-independent capability, I might have an environment that has the Fortinet firewall, FortiGate firewall, but users and devices are authenticating on a Cisco switch or an HP switch. So because Bradford is authenticating those users and devices at the access layer prior to granting network access, we have IP address and username information for those devices because we're allowing them on the network. With the integration with the single sign-on, we can feed that user and IP information to the FortiGate through radius accounting. And why does that matter? It matters because the customer can now apply user-based firewall policies to non-domain machines. So obviously there are capabilities within the Fortinet product line to obtain user and IP information and use that for user-based firewall policies. Some of it's because they're tied to the directory. Fortinet has a captive portal. FortiGate can put up a captive portal. But if we're requiring a captive portal on an access layer switch, we don't want that user to have to go through another captive portal when that user's traffic hits the firewall. So by Bradford providing that user and IP information to the firewall ahead of time, then FortiGate can do exactly what it needs to do because they already have that information. So again, Bradford's providing a service at the access layer in a multi-vendor environment, feeding that information to FortiGate in order to provide that single sign-on service and then apply user-based policies. So radius accounting is the mechanism that Bradford uses to provide that information to Fortinet. And then as traffic hits the firewall, the FortiGate knows who the user is. If they're in an Active Directory group, then that might determine what access they have. If it's not an AD-based machine, then maybe there's a contractor policy or a guest or a visitor policy. So in the Network Sentry product, it's as simple as selecting a radius accounting port, defining what the single sign-on agent communication mechanism is, and with Fortinet, it's radius-based, defining that radius secret. So anytime there's a change to a host in the Network Sentry inventory, again, that MAC address, IP address, user information, anytime there's a change, there's accounting messages sent to FortiGate to keep that information up to date. Obviously, devices move, devices get different IP addresses, different users may log into devices. So our ability to control the access layer, regardless of what vendor is providing that access, wired or wireless, we can feed that information to FortiGate and allow the customer to provide those user-based firewall policies. The next one, FortiGate. automatically disable misbehaving hosts that are identified by the firewall. And I just picked web application filtering or command and control. So as I said earlier, we're not looking at the traffic that's being generated by the device. Obviously, that traffic can be flowing through the FortiGate product. So we get a security alert, and from FortiGate, that's a syslog message. So we would be defined as a syslog receiver, and within that message, there's a type. It's a threat, or it's traffic-based, subtype information, threat ID, severity level. All that information is specific to the information that's Fortinet's collecting, and obviously there's rules that can be set up within Fortinet to look for certain things. The key piece is the IP address, and that's typically the source IP address. That's the device that's responsible for this alert being generated. When we receive that IP address in the message, that allows us to look up in our endpoint inventory what the corresponding host is. We know what operating system it is. We know what adapters it might have. Is it connected on the wired network? Where is it connected? Is it on the guest network? Is it on the academic network? Is it a dorm? Is it on the PCI network? Is it on the HIPAA network? So with the user and network awareness that Bradford has, we can combine that host and user and location information with the threat information from FortiGate, and then allow the customer to create rules to define automated actions. So again, the key piece is that source IP address that ties into the host and the user information. In this example, both are trusted, but that's that context and that contextual awareness that Bradford brings to the table. FortiGate by itself or any other vendor doing the same thing is not going to have that level of access layer 2, layer 3 information. So within Network Sentry, you create security rules. And security rules have 3 components. There's a trigger, which was that message from FortiGate with the threat and the threat type and the severity level and the source IP address. So here's the trigger, and we're only in this example, we're triggering on something that comes from Fortinet. The type is UTM, and the subtype is virus. Within Network Sentry, you can have multiple triggers. So we could have, I need 2 different events from Fortinet, or I need an event from Fortinet and an event from another product. So you can define the triggers. It doesn't have to be a single trigger. But when that trigger hits, the source IP address, again, that applies to a host. That host is connected on the network somewhere. So I'm going to apply all the network context and device and user context into what is called Bradford's terminology, a user host profile. So I'm going to take into account where this device is connected, who the user is, what AD group they might be a member of. Is it a Windows machine? Is it Mac OS? Is it a mobile device? Is it managed by an MDM? So all that information can be built into this security rule. If the trigger and the source IP address matches this particular user host profile, meaning this threat on my PCI network matches, then you can define an automated action to take place. Again, that action probably might be a notification initially. I can notify the user on the endpoint or notify the help desk. But again, the goal is to take threats that are on a particular part of the network that are deemed critical and not have to wait minutes or hours or even days to figure out where that host is and actually take it off the network. So there's actions that are defined, and those actions are tied to the trigger and the user host profile. In this example, we're going to automatically disable the host that's associated to that source IP address in the message from Fortinet. And just as an example, we're going to re-enable that host 2 minutes later. So again, I've got triggers, I've got user host profiles to match up against, again, documenting and defining and taking into account the who, what, where, and when, and then defining an automated action. So if the rule matches, then there's security alarms that are created. And here's an example of specific security alarms, and it defines when the action was taken, and it defines when the action was undone. You can see there's about 2 or 3 minutes apart. That host was automatically disabled based on the UTM virus rule that was triggered by that message from FortiGate. So, what's the value to the customer is that a defined specific events within Fortinet that are happening on a specific part of their network to specific hosts and or specific users, and when those conditions occur, they define an action that happens automatically. So you're bringing all that layer 2 capabilities and control functions that Bradford brings to the table and combining that with the inline security capabilities within FortiGate. Assuming there's been no questions, Sean, right? Otherwise you would have let me know. So I'll keep going.
No questions yet.
Great. Bradford can send information to the FortiSIEM. So obviously, I said earlier, we know when devices and users are plugging into the network. We can feed that through single sign-on. We also generate some pretty valuable events. Multiple MAC addresses behind an IP phone, or multiple MAC addresses on a port and there is no phone. If a device fails a scan and it's defined as at risk and it needs to be quarantined, any Network Sentry event can be forwarded to the FortiSIEM. This integration is still ongoing. What we need on the FortiSIEM side is some parsing to be done. But on the Network Sentry side, it's pretty basic. We define the FortiSIEM as a syslog receiver, define what the syslog format is, and any event that's defined within Bradford Network Sentry will go to the FortiSIEM product. So within FortiSIEM, if you define different locations, then all that data that Bradford feeds, you can create rules within FortiSIEM that take advantage of some of the location information, and that location information is going to be fed from the Network Sentry product to the FortiSIEM. FortiSIEM to Bradford, very similar to the FortiGate integration in the sense that it's a post-connect event. Within that post-connect event, I have similar characteristics, threats and threat type and severity and source IP address information. The benefit of taking it from FortiSIEM is that there's a lot of correlating that gets done on the SIEM side. So an example would be a successful brute force attack from a particular host on the network. So I get the event from FortiSIEM. Mechanism is a little bit different than FortiGate, but that technical detail isn't really relevant. Taking the source IP address again from that message from the FortiSIEM, I can tie that IP address again to a user and to a device, and now I have a lot more information that I can make decisions on. So that ties into the exact same security rules that we looked at earlier. On the Network Sentry side, what I wanted to show you on the FortiSIEM side is where that would be done. So a little bit technical, but very, very straightforward and very easy. So in the FortiSIEM world, these are incidents. Incidents are created based on rules that are defined looking at events. So I'm going to map FortiSIEM incidents to an SNMP message. That's the mechanism that triggers Network Sentry. So within the FortiSIEM, I need to define the Network Sentry box as an SNMP trap receiver. Very simple, again, just define the IP address. And here's an example within FortiSIEM of an incident being generated. And this example is that brute force login success. So when that incident is triggered within the SIEM, an SNMP trap is generated to Network Sentry, and that maps to a trigger, which is the exact same trigger that we looked at on the FortiGate side. So everything that happens from here on in is exactly the same thing that we talked about with FortiGate. The only difference is the source of that trigger, in this case, is the FortiSIEM. So everything that FortiSIEM can identify as an incident, that can map to a Network Sentry security event, maps to the alarm. So the exact same thing. I've got triggers, I've got user host profiles, and I've got automated actions. And those actions are tied to the security alarms that are generated. So exactly the same functionality. The benefit to the customer is there's a lot of event correlation that can be done on the SIEM side above and beyond what's being done on the FortiGate side. So exactly the same value, tying some of the security operations center capabilities to the network operations center functions, and again, tying all the user and device context into that incident that came from the SIEM. The last one, the FortiSwitch, port-based control without 802.1x. Not a lot of detail here. To be totally upfront, we're developing that integration now, and from a benefits to the customer, very similar to the Maru integration. So with the network-based captive portal, devices connecting to a switch on the port or to a port on the switch, we can provide that web-based captive portal for BYOD, for guest and visitor. Actually, the overlap I don't believe exists here. That was a tie over from the wireless side. Full endpoint compliance capabilities, role-based access. So everything that we do controlling wireless clients will also apply to wired clients. And again, tying the adapter and network interfaces on a host allows us to keep that policy applied to the host regardless of how it connects to the network. So again, tying into what Cisco offers with their integrated services engine and a lot of the other wired vendors, having capabilities on the access control side, tying Network Sentry into a switch sale gives you that advantage, trying to just sell the switch on its own. The last section is the licensing options within Network Sentry. Not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but I really want to just differentiate between the Premier license, which is the first column that gives you all of the pre-connect traditional NAC functionality, all the inventory, device profiling, onboarding, captive portal, agent, endpoint compliance, role-based access functionality, and all the post-connect security automation functions that we talked about with the FortiGate FortiSIEM. The advanced license is all the traditional pre-connect functionality without the post-connect security automation. And then the last license is the Secure Enterprise Response, gives you really that post-connect functionality. It gives you the visibility, devices, knowing where devices are, but none of the traditional role-based access, captive portal, onboarding, endpoint compliance, guest management. Why I brought that up is for anybody that is attending today's call, we're offering you the ability to pick a customer in your environment. Hopefully they have a Fortinet product, and we're going to offer you a free Network Sentry system that's VMware based. Put it in that customer's environment to demonstrate the value that Network Sentry brings to the Fortinet product line, and hopefully use that customer as a reference for additional Fortinet sales, for additional Network Sentry sales. So again, it's the SCR license that gives you all of that post-connect functionality that I talked about earlier. Messages, triggers, automated actions. So hopefully this has helped you understand how Bradford, in conjunction with the Fortinet product line, will help you sell more product and make more money. And really it's reducing the time that it takes to mitigate threats, take bad devices off the network through the automation that we've described here. And obviously, hopefully obvious, how to differentiate FortiGate from other firewalls, next-gen firewalls, IDS, IPS systems. So having this automated access layer enforcement capability is definitely an advantage, even on the FortiSIEM side. So again, the offer to each partner that's here, if you want to discuss this in more detail, if you have Sean's information, as I said, Sean Craig is our channel manager. If you want to respond to Avani and somehow reach out to Bradford, we'll definitely talk through this. My contact information is on the slide. Avani, is there?
Yeah, Rick.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, this is Sean. I think the best mechanism, if you guys want to explore a relationship with Bradford, I think the best course of action is to contact your FineTech reps, and they will put you in contact with us. And
yeah.
And okay, go ahead, Connie.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. You can contact your regional sales reps, and even they can help you out with this.
And even if it's just for a follow-up webinar, demo, more detailed discussion on the things that we covered today. So have an individual demonstration. Again, contact your FineTech rep, and they'll put you in touch with the appropriate Bradford folks. So still no questions. I'm surprised. Nobody, either I bored everybody to tears, or it was so thorough that everybody completely understands what I said.
Yeah, we're just going to wait for a couple minutes to see if anyone has questions. If you guys do, you can put it in the Q&A box or the chat box where Sean wrote. So go ahead. Meanwhile, let me share my screen. Okay, I guess there are no questions. Before I jump on to next webinar details and raffle drawing, I would like to thank Rick for taking your time out to present and educate our partners. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for the time.
No problem. So I'm going to take the control back, and here's our sales territory map. So again, as we said before, if you guys have any further questions, concerns regarding anything, you can directly contact your regional sales reps, and they will be more than happy to answer those for you. Also, I would like to show you, oh, I think there's a question. Great.
There is a question? I don't see the question. Do I?
Well, it's in the Q&A box. Aaron is asking, how long does customer have access to their trial?
Probably 15 to 30 days, I guess, would kind of make sense. You know, we'd like to engage and make it quicker, but you know, if they're willing to dedicate the time, we could get it done in 3 or 4 days and show that value. How come I don't see the questions?
Do you see the Q&A box?
See the chat? Yeah, I see the Q&A. Okay,
Yeah.
There it is. I see it. Thank you.
No problem.
To put the VM in place literally takes like 15 minutes, and then we have a pretty well-defined process to do these evaluations. There's prerequisite checklists. Typically, it's done through a couple of remote go-to-meeting sessions. You know, depending on the opportunity, we may or may not go on site with a partner to demonstrate everything live. So.
Okay.
Everett has a question.
Sure. On the wired side, pretty much any managed wired switch, obviously, you know, Cisco, HP, Extreme, Alcatel, Nortel, Huawei switches, Dell switches, 3Com switches. On the wireless vendor side, Cisco, Meraki, Aruba, Ruckus, Aerohive, the Motorola product, now Zebra, that's part of Extreme. So really that's any managed device that's out there can be leveraged by Network Sentry to build that endpoint visibility and then turn around and use that infrastructure for enforcement based on the events coming from the security solutions that we talked about.
Okay, are there any more questions? Meanwhile, let me show you our partner portal where you guys can register and have access to our previous webinar recordings and presentations. Over here on our Webcast Wednesday portal. Also, you can have access to our current partner promotions, you know, talking points and additional resources, which includes the line card and the territory map that I just showed. Oops. So again, in our next webinar on March 22nd, we will have Luke Worrell from Fortinet to talk about how to protect and manage with FortiGate, FortiManager, and FortiClient. Now I'm going to do a raffle drawing for 2 people to win $25 Amazon gift card. We're going to do our final drawing here. Okay, congratulations, Jeff and Everett, on winning the gift card. I will later email you with your e-code. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Rick, for your time. We will see you guys on March 22nd. Thank you.
Thanks, Avani. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, everyone.